Hello all. I'm still processing the fact that the Republican and Democratic parties have so much contempt for the American people that they have served us up Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. It's terrible, offensive, but I've got to move on. I've got to cover this election. I've got to continue to look at it. I won't forget this insult, but it's time to move forward. So today, I'd like to ask a question about political conventions. Which one is going to be worse? Is it going to be the Democratic convention or the Republican convention? We already know who the Democratic and Republican nominees are, but these choices are formalized in political conventions in July of 2016. The Republican one is going to happen in Cleveland, and the Democratic one is going to happen in Philadelphia a couple weeks later. These conventions are usually just PR exercises, but this year we may get something we can sink our teeth into. So which one's going to be more of a shit show? The Democratic one or the Republican one? At this point, I think I'm going to say the Democratic one. Let me explain why. The classic example of the disastrous convention is the 1968 Democratic one in Chicago, Illinois. Police had been beating civil rights campaigners all over the country throughout the decade. But these images of Chicago cops wading through a bunch of mostly white protesters shocked the country. What made Chicago such a tinderbox was the spectacle of a party at war with itself, both on the streets and within the convention hall. Democratic President Lyndon B. Johnson refused to run again in 1968, largely because of his disastrous Vietnam War policy. Popular anti-war candidate Robert F. Kennedy had been assassinated. The candidate with the most delegates was now Eugene McCarthy, another anti-war candidate. The party elites, however, wanted someone else, and they nominated Hubert Humphrey, a pro-Vietnam War candidate who hadn't even participated in any primaries. This stolen nomination resulted in a party divided against itself that wouldn't regain the presidency for another 8 years, and then only briefly. It turned the convention itself into a mob scene. The crucial factor in destroying a convention is discord on two levels, within the party and outside on the streets. At first look, it may seem like the Republican Party is much more likely to be in line for a Chicago-level disaster. But not if you look a little more closely. The Republican nomination process has certainly been much more interesting up to this point, but it's over. And unlike most contests of this sort, it's actually ended up with the grassroots winning. It's pretty clear that Donald Trump is not the choice of the party elites, but he is the choice of the party base. The folks who would be potentially rioting within the convention halls are all going to be pretty happy. There's certainly discord within the Republican Party, but it's elite dissatisfaction, not grassroots dissatisfaction. Paul Ryan isn't going to go running around the streets of Cleveland with a baseball bat. He just may choose not to come. And that's what we'll see at the Republican Party. Just less people there, less corporations willing to fund it. That is not going to yield a 1968 level disaster. Now the Democrats, on the other hand, are a different story. They have an elite candidate that has been favored the entire way through, and now she's won. This has built up tremendous dissatisfaction within the ranks of the Democratic Party. Now, it's certainly not at 1968 levels. Clinton is a much more legitimately chosen candidate. There's no overarching issue like the Vietnam War that she's that colossally wrong on. But I think the convention in Philadelphia, the Democratic convention, has the potential to be a lot more interesting. You've got Bernie Sanders, who has a large number of delegates that are going to be within the convention hall and quite possibly protesting. These protesters within the halls are going to have a great deal of affinity with the protesters outside the halls on the streets. What happens in the convention will be reflected on the streets, and what happens on the streets will be reflected within the convention. There will certainly be protesters at the Republican convention in Cleveland, but they will quickly be marginalized. They're going to have to deal with the Republican Party apparatus that is very skilled at dealing with free speech-related security threats, and they're going to have to deal with the Cleveland Police Department. As brutal as the Cleveland cops are, they're a lot better at PR than those guys in Chicago in 1968. There aren't going to be any telegenic protests. It's the Democratic convention, with its affinity between protesters inside the convention and outside the convention, that makes me think of Chicago in 1968. It's almost certain to not be on that level. I really hope it's not on that level. But I think the Democratic Party convention this year is going to be a lot more interesting than the Republican Party one. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. And if you'd like to help me make more videos like this one, please click on the Patreon link here to find out how.